We're talking additions today. What are your thoughts on additions, Lachlan?
They're okay.
For me, I love additions. Screw piles, full basements, L brackets, anything additions, I love it. All about additions today. Let's check it out.
So we've broken these into three categories. We have brackets and cantilevers, we have piles, whether that's concrete or screw piles, and we have full foundations. And we're also going to include crawl spaces in that conversation. Yep. Let's get to it.
So first up is L brackets. So this is a typical house, you overhang. We usually want to do L brackets, in my opinion, when the addition is just as big as the existing overhang. That way you're just basically tucking underneath. You're not dealing with roof structure stuff. It's just extending the kitchen if you wanted to put the cabinets outside the room so you can make room for an island. Or if you had a dining room for a hutch or a bedroom for the headboard, something like that. Something small, relatively insignificant, but sort of quick and easy and very minimal disruption to the site and current conditions and that kind of stuff.
And really all this is a bracket that gets bolted into the foundation here. We'll have, in this situation, we'll have a drop beam here, and a new floor system gets added on, new wall comes up and tucks under the existing overhang, and then the existing wall will get taken out, and we just put in a drop beam or a flush beam, depending on what the roof system is. That can be decided by the engineers. Drop beam there with a post on each side, and that's, you put your bench seat or your cabinets or whatever you like in there, and that's your addition.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about how we would insulate that?
So for something like this, what we would do, or recommend at least for insulation, would be either spray foam from the bottom up, which I'm not a big fan of spray foam from the bottom up. So you would spray foam to the underside of the sheathing and down. When we do additions and stuff with screw piles, we've come to realize that the best way to do it is not from the top down, but from the bottom up is the sort of better way to do it. So personally, I would rather try and do the floor. Before you sheet it, we would do either drop a ceiling down here and spray foam down here into the rim joist, and then do the heat run extension if it has to be, and then the subfloor, and then build a wall and that kind of stuff. That's sort of keeping the cold air further away from the warm living space, and so it just performs better.
And this is a situation where we prefer using spray foam just because it's an awkward spot to get to, and spray foam acts as a vapor barrier at the same time, so it can seal all those weird areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to.
Yep.
A quick note on this, because we did mention cantilevers. Doing L brackets is basically the renovation equivalent to cantilevers in new construction.
Yep.
You're just doing it for a little bit of a bump out, a little extra space. So normally a cantilever, your joist from in here would tie all the way across into the bump out and support the wall and everything from there. In renovations, it's usually not cost effective because you have to be tearing up the entire floor system to do that. So this is an easy alternative to it.
Yep. Next up is screw piles. This could be screw piles or like concrete piers, whichever, same difference. Basically, it's non-foundation structural support. So in this case, we have our screw pile going down, we have our drop beam, and then our floor system that extends off the existing house at the same line. So I've done them different ways over the years. I've done it where, like I mentioned earlier, spray foaming from the bottom up to the underside of the floor. Doesn't work great, to be honest. You always know when you're stepping off the existing foundation onto the basically cold space. One thing you have to realize when you do an addition like this is that because there's no basement below you, basically all you're doing is you're insulating to keep the cold out. There's no heat, so the floor is always, temperature-wise, is always going to be colder than your existing basement. So that's one of the compromises you make when you go this route. But one way we've done it recently and we're getting better results with is we basically do a drop in an opposite direction. We do a drop ceiling on that. And then same thing, we build the joist floor system, and then we spray foam from the top down to create a bit of a cavity there for airspace. So we would basically spray foam all this space, probably 6-7 inches kind of thing, a 2-pound spray foam. And then we would do bat insulation on top of that and leave a bit of an airspace there. So again, it's just multiple different layers to keep the cold at bay, and then to keep a bit of an airspace between your floor, between your feet, the floor, and then the insulation kind of thing. Just again, trying to minimize that cold transfer all the way through. So that's how we've been doing it. We have this new idea we're going to try coming up if we have enough space down below. Like in this example, there's ample room there. So what we're going to try moving forward, again, just trying to build better, take our past experiences and make it perform better, is we're going to actually do this drop lower. So like maybe down here somewhere. And the idea would be all of our insulation would be way below the floor assembly, like down here. And then what we'll do is we'll take a heat vent and dump heat in that space. So again, keeping the cold at bay, and then also introducing some warm air in that cavity between the bottom of the subfloor and the top of the insulation to try to mimic more of a typical basement. So we think that if, again, circumstance will have to be, enough room to make that work, but we think that'll produce better results as well. So we'll see if we're able to do that next time.
And as far as the piles go, as you said, we can do concrete or we can do screw piles. We normally choose screw piles just for the fact that you can do them as long as you have access for the machine to get in there.
Yeah.
You can do them in the middle of winter. You can do them anytime. They can get through it. It's a lot less intrusive to your existing yard.
Yep.
You don't have to actually dig anything up. So it's just a nice, easy system that we use and gets things moving a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
So once our floor system is done, supported, everything's ready to go, we can frame our exterior walls and tie our roof in. As far as tying the roof in, it all depends on the house, depends on the situation. Sometimes we end up replacing the entire roof because it just makes more sense financially. Sometimes we're just tying into the existing one. It's all dependent on the house and the size of the addition and everything. But what's great about doing additions like this is, as long as the situation allows, we can usually do all of this work, get the whole addition closed in before we actually take down this wall. So all of this work can happen without affecting the homeowners inside. And people tend to be pretty happy about that, not having to move out or make just massive changes to their lives.
Totally.
Or be living in, basically camping in their own house.
Yeah.
And then this is the exact same situation as the last one, where we take this wall out, beam goes in, maybe it's a door, maybe it's you open up the whole wall. It all depends on the layout, but that's when you can come into the house, is once everything else is already done. And now full foundations. This is, whenever possible, this is the best option.
Always the best option if budget works.
Yeah, budget and site access and all that.
Yep.
Those are always considerations, but best case scenario, you get basically double the square footage that you would get compared to just a screw pile addition.
Yep.
One option within this category would be doing a crawl space. The problem with that is, if you're digging a foundation, no matter what, you have to get 4 feet below 4 feet below grade, below the frost line here. If you're digging this far down anyway, adding a few extra feet of foundation to actually get all of this square footage as usable space seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah.
So it is an option, but generally we just talk about doing a full foundation with a basement.
Yeah, if you're not going full foundation, really screw piles are probably just as good as doing a crawl space realistically, unless you just wanted like suitcase storage and you didn't actually need a new media room or new extra bedroom in the basement, something like that. Because really most times the deferring point is cost or access, or they have landscaping done or whatever the case may be. So if you can dig a foundation, you might as well go full foundation realistically, because the cost increment is not that, especially if you don't even develop it. If you just put the basement in compared to a crawl space, you're not talking significant difference in price for sure. So,
and this ends up being a lot like a screw pile addition once we're underway, where it can be, as long as the situation allows, it can be done all from outside. We put our new roof on, tie in, all of that gets done. And then we can take down this wall, put our beam in, cut this opening in at some point during the process. And same thing down here. That can be, with the right engineering, that can be opening up an entire wall and making a room bigger, or that can be just adding a doorway if you want extra office space or something like that.
Yep.
You do have a lot of options with this, and it really feels like you're making the existing house bigger, and it'll feel like it was always part of your house, as opposed to feeling like you're in an addition, which sometimes happens with different types.
Totally. And that comes down to planning and design and stuff, because you don't want it to look like you just added on this little piece of the back of your house or your side of your house. You want it to feel like it was well thought out and incorporated into the way the house works and performs. So there's one thing. So old houses, they typically sag down the center. So you don't really notice it until you change that line of sight. So any addition, screw pile, cantilever, full basement, whatever, there's always this tendency to have a bump across this exterior transition. So what we always try to do, one thing is cut the existing subfloor back enough to overlap the new subfloor, just to try to transition that bump a little smoother. And also we usually end up like kind of grinding down or planing down some of this existing structure just to minimize that bump. Because again, that's a sort of telltale sign of an addition, is that you see someone's kitchen or dining room and you see a huge bump in the floor. So we always try to do whatever we can to minimize that bump, to make it really feel seamless from the new and the old kind of thing. So just something to watch out for. So if you're getting an addition done, or if you're someone about to do an addition, just bear that in mind. Take some time, do what you need to do to make that that transition a bit smoother and not so obvious that there's a cold join of like new and old structure kind of thing.
So to wrap it all up, basically, we have lots of different options for lots of different situations. You have to evaluate what's right for your house, your family,
and your budget.
That's an important one. So if you just want a little bench seat or a little extra kitchen space, maybe a cantilever is right for you.
Yep.
If you want, say you want to extend your dining room so you can fit a bigger table in there, a couple extra things, maybe screw piles are a good option.
Yeah.
If you have the space and the budget for it, and you really want to add some square footage, maybe you have some more complicated shapes coming in, then going with a full foundation is a great option for that.
Or if you want to add space to your basement, maybe you want a media room or an extra bedroom for a teenage kid or something like that, like going with a full basement and adding a new space is a great option as well.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you tuning in. Our goal with making videos like this is just to have more conversations about how we can improve, how the industry can improve. We want to educate homeowners as much as possible, and
fellow tradespeople as well.
For sure.
What's the saying? Rising tide raises all boats. So that's what we kind of want to do here. So
absolutely. So if you have anything, if you want to come by the office to have a coffee and chat at some point, you're more than welcome. We can learn a lot from each other. And we can all just try to get better and build better.
Continually building better.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks.